The only reason most people don't buy a spring-loaded hose reel is that they don't want to screw anything into their house, and then Gardena of Germany contacted me and said they had a brand new hose reel that gave you the benefits of a spring-loaded system, but it didn't need to be mounted to your house, and you put it in the ground, but it didn't require any digging. So this sounded pretty crazy, so I was excited to take a look at this thing and see how it could actually work. This is Gardena's brand new hose reel that screws directly into the ground. Now I did say the word screw, which is really weird when it comes to something that you put into your yard, but that's exactly how this thing works. But what I wanted to know is, was this screw strong enough to keep this thing in the ground even when you're tugging on that hose? And is the hose reel itself even worth the money? Well, let's take a look at how this thing installs, and I can share exactly what I discovered. You get everything you need inside the box, but you do need to assemble just a couple of parts. This portion of the base is the swivel, because you can rotate this reel in any direction. You need to put in 3 screws, and then you're ready to go. Next, you need to decide where you want to put this thing. Now, it doesn't have to be a permanent location because you can just as easily remove it, but you're going to want to locate it near one of your hose taps, and here I want to put it on the corner. This will give me a couple of benefits. I'll be able to swivel that reel around 2 different sides of my house. They include this small cheater hose with the kit, and it also has the quick connectors on the end that Gardena is really famous for. Now this hose is only 6 feet, so you have to locate it pretty close to a tap, but you could get a longer hose that could connect into your reel if you wanted to locate it further away. Next, we need to install that screw in the ground, and doing this couldn't be easier. You can start it by hand if you want, but once you get a few inches in the ground, you're going to need some help, and fortunately they include this rod. This just slides right through a hole inside the base, and now you can twist it and it'll go quickly into the ground. Now I'm using it like a T-handle here, but if you need a lot of leverage or you put it into something hard like clay, you can use that rod all the way at the end. Now one mistake I made here was not reading the directions, because you're supposed to put that screw all the way into the ground. I left it out of the ground a few inches, which is actually good to test it out because that means that this screw will actually be weaker than it would if I had correctly installed it. Now once that's in the ground, you're going to slide that collar over it, and there are 2 holes in the bottom. But these don't hold the hose reel in position, which means you can swivel it in any direction, and when it comes time for winter, you can just easily lift this hose reel right off the base and store it inside. Now with the hose installed in less than 5 minutes, I've just got to connect my water, and that's easily done using these quick disconnect fittings. And where I installed this is going to be a little tight on that hose, so in the future I'll probably extend that by a couple of feet. Another nice feature is they include a Gardena hose nozzle right in the box. The design of this thing is definitely a German style, looks really modern, and it may not be the perfect fit for my house because it really is more of an antique, but this is going to be super popular with many people who have modern homes, or they just want something a little bit more high-tech. But the real test was to see if this hose reel worked and would it pull out of the ground. Now in the past, if you've had a cheap hose reel, those things like to pull everywhere the hoses snag, and they're usually a pretty big headache. This reel worked perfectly. I pulled the hose out and there was no issue at all. But the other benefit with this reel is it is fully spring loaded and it's got a guide inside. So as it's reeling up, it's neatly coiling that hose inside. You're not going to get any kinks, and it's going to allow that hose to last as long as possible. This nozzle I included worked surprisingly well. It had a good stream. You could also adjust that pattern and it was very even. Also includes a quick disconnect with a valve inside, so when you disconnect it, you're not really going to spill much water. Now a few things about the hose. It does feel really well made, but it's only a 1/2 inch in diameter. And that's going to be ideal for watering plants, washing your car, or even running something like a pressure washer. But if you plan to fill up your pool, you're probably going to want to get a thicker hose. A lot of people don't realize in Europe, reels like this are super common, but they've been kind of slow to get adopted here, and I'm not really sure why because they are super convenient. I installed this reel into a mulch bed, which is not very solid, and I didn't even put it in the ground all the way. So I wanted to follow the directions, so I broke out the tool again and started to twist that screw further into the ground, and it's going to give it a much neater appearance. But the other cool feature I learned was you can actually store the tool right in the base. And now in the future, if you want to move this thing, that tool is going to be right there. The length of the hose inside the retractable reel is just 50 feet. Now for many people that's going to be long enough, and you are going to get the convenience of being able to mount that reel anywhere, anytime you need it. But if you want to have more length than that, they also offer a 100-foot version, but this one does need to be secured to either a post or a building, but it uses that same quality of hose. It's got the retractable mechanism along with the guide inside, but I suspect a lot of people are going to choose that portable because it is just so easy to install. In the past, the only Gardena products I've ever reviewed have been their robotic lawnmower, and that thing was super high tech, but the more popular thing that they sell are their hose connectors and their sprinklers. So fortunately they included 2 of them for me to test with this reel. They also included one of these built-in timers, so with this you can just turn it to the setting you want, and that sprinkler will shut off automatically. Now timers aren't revolutionary, but the sprinkler itself really is. it's got these settings that can actually change the arc. Now you might think that's not a big deal, but it really is, because this one can adjust the arc independently on both sides, but it's surprisingly easy. You just flip a switch, and now you can see that the jets themselves move. That is a feature I've never seen on any other sprinkler, and it's going to be handy if you're watering right against your house. And I really underestimated how useful these sprinklers are, and I didn't want to make this video too long, so if you're interested to see reviews on both of those, just leave me a comment below, and I'd be happy to do another video showing those in detail. Now there is one negative with the Gardena product line, and that's that they're generally expensive, but you are definitely going to get what you pay for. So if you're tired of getting cheap hose reels that tip over or just don't work, this is definitely one to consider, and I've linked all the products I've shown in the video below, and you can check them out and see if it might be something you want to look at.